And now to Emancipation Hall. The ceremony continues up on Capitol Hill. That is the Statue of Freedom, the replica of the plaster replica of the bronze statue that is at the very top of the U.S. Capitol, a woman that sits on the highest spot in Washington there. And the reason we're looking at Emancipation Hall is because there is going to be a first honors ceremony there. And that's where our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes, is as well. And we're going to check in with her in just a moment because we're watching this first honors ceremony where what you see here, troops positioned into 6 Armed Service Honor Guard formations. It actually comes to 102 individuals from the U.S. Army, U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Space Force, which was created by Donald Trump, and the U.S. Coast Guard. Want to bring in our congressional correspondent, Nikole Killion. Nikole?
Yeah, well, of course, as we watch Emancipation Hall here on this side of the U.S. Capitol, we are on the Senate side. They are getting ready to get back to work now that that inaugural luncheon is over. So this is no day off for them. The senators are getting ready to head back to the floor to take up a number of items, including starting the process of starting to confirm some of President Trump's nominees. We know there are several committees that are due to meet this afternoon to take up the nominations of several of the president's cabinet selections. That includes Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, John Ratcliffe, the president's pick for CIA director in the Intelligence Committee, as well as the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, which is also taking up the nominations of Kristi Noem for Homeland Security Secretary, as well as Russell Vought for OMB director. Now, granted, all of those may not come to the floor today, but certainly we were told to potentially be prepared for a full confirmation vote for Marco Rubio for Secretary of State and John Ratcliffe for CIA director as soon as today. So that is why it is critical to get that Senate floor open. I was told from several sources, some of this in terms of the timing will depend on whether or not they get cooperation from Democrats with respect to these nominations. Although in the case of Marco Rubio, for instance, he certainly is someone who is expected to have bipartisan support, as is potentially John Ratcliffe. Certainly there are other nominees of the president that have been more controversial, such as Pete Hegseth for a defense secretary, where some of those votes have yet to be scheduled. So that is something that we are watching for on the Senate floor, in addition to legislation that the Senate will take up as well, including the Riley Act, which is something that has already passed the House, but will be taken up here in the Senate later today, named after that nursing student from Georgia who was murdered by an undocumented immigrant. Of course, there was a very emotional trial that took place down in Georgia, and consequently, this legislation, of course, is named in her honor, but in essence would, in effect, make it easier to detain undocumented immigrants who commit certain crimes such as theft, which was the case in the case of Laken Riley and her assailant. So that is something that we expect the Senate to take up in short order at some point today, even in spite of some of the delays that we saw with respect to the inauguration ceremony as well as that luncheon. But a few senators kind of snuck out. We saw them over here, but most of them now set to get back to work. Nora.
Nikole Killion with that update as the Senate is trying to get back to work and begin processing and approving some of the president's nominees for his cabinet positions. Want to bring in moderator Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan. And Margaret, as we look at the number of these officials, governors, senators, and more that Trump has chosen to fill out his cabinet, which ones may be in jeopardy or face a big challenge?
Well, we know the ones who don't even have a date yet to have their day of questioning are particularly in focus. Kash Patel, the choice to run the FBI in particular. He is someone who, as I mentioned earlier, his FBI background check is still ongoing. He has some well-documented public statements, including a book he published with a list of people that he says are on that enemies list for future prosecution, potentially, including Republican names, like the former Attorney General, Bill Barr. He's got a long list of things senators want to question him on. Even people like Lindsey Graham, who was on Face the Nation yesterday, said he wouldn't say no matter what he's a yes, but he's probably a yes. You also have we already talked about Pete Hegseth. It sounds like the committee vote on him out of Armed Services may be happening, but there's some questions about when it gets to the floor. You have 2 new senators who are going to be sworn in. Those Republican votes are very much needed, even though they have the majority. There are still some questions about someone like RFK Jr. Also doesn't have a hearing yet scheduled. What we know, and it's been published in a number of newspapers recently, in the Washington Post and New York Times, there are financial disclosures for RFK Jr. that have not yet been fully gone through with the committee, and maybe holding things up as well. So that's beyond his vaccine skepticism and some of his public beliefs. It's just getting through the paperwork process is challenging for someone like him who has some generational wealth there as well. And of course, Tulsi Gabbard is someone who is a former Democratic Congresswoman, the pick to become the next director of national intelligence to oversee about 17 or 18 intelligence agencies. She doesn't have a hearing scheduled yet either. And there are a number of people who have very specific questions they want to put to her about why she has said things that mimic Russian propaganda and question the U.S. intelligence community, including very recently having done so and questioning their conclusions. Can she lead when she has questioned
And just to take a step back on Tulsi Gabbard and the intelligence community, in her role in Congress, what are some of the things that she has opposed that the Intelligence Committee believes is central to them being able to do their job?
Well, one of them, a very specific tool, Section 702, a surveillance tool that would that certainly the intelligence community says is essential to their ability to conduct oversight and monitor individuals overseas.
Which many Republican senators support.
Right. But some within the far right of the party, within the Freedom Caucus, have said that surveillance of individuals, even if they're overseas, if it involves conduct with someone in the United States, they don't get too comfortable. There was some reform of it. But without getting too much in the weeds, she came out publicly very recently with a change of heart on that provision, something that was very much seen as a gesture to try to get more Republican senators on board with her. There was also that trip she took to Syria in 2017 in the wake of a high confidence assessment by U.S. intelligence that Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, a finding that she questioned, and some disclosures over that. One of the senators from West Virginia, Senator Capito, recently said on another television network that Gabbard assured her she didn't know she was going to Syria. She just ended up there. She thought she was going to Lebanon. So there are some questions about.
And did Senator Capito believe that?
I would love to ask Senator Capito more questions about that. If she was on Face the Nation, I would have. Noteworthy.
Yeah. And I think that Tulsi Gabbard has visited Syria more than once.
That's right.
Yeah,
and she did go into some opposition areas, but some members of the opposition have said that they did not like that she questioned the accounts of some of those individuals who said they had been bombed by the Assad regime.